Hi all, welcome to my first lesson in this Airweb tutorial. So I just want to go over the most basic application you could make. And before I do that, I have one little non-standard add-on to Airweb that I have. And that's basically this little watch file, which I'll be including in the GitHub repository for this tutorial. And what it does is that it basically looks for the executable to be changed. It's watching for changes in this executable that's compiled. And when it finds that it's been changed, it kills the previous instance of the server, then reloads it, and then touches this thing called what I call a watch file. And the reason why I have it touch a watch file is so that there's this add-on that I have for Firefox that watches for that watch file to be touched and then reloads the page. And so that allows for a form of interactive programming with Airweb. And the reason why I use the watch file rather than just reloading when the executable is changed is because Airweb also generates SQL files and a whole bunch of other things like that. So it allows for all those things to complete before the browser is reloaded. So that's my setup. And here's the simplest possible application you could make before the second simplest possible application that you can make, which we're going to implement today. And so all it does is it returns a blank page. And there's a couple of supporting files. There's obviously the make file for this, which just calls Airweb on this executable that I've named step 1. There is the ers file, which defines the interface to the same named file. So this is step1.ers. We have step1.er, which is the actual application, and then step1.erp, which is pretty empty in this one, but it'll be filled up pretty soon with details. But it manages things like database connections, the name of the executable, libraries that you want to use, that kind of stuff. So get on to writing this application. It's not all that interesting that it's a blank page. So add some context. All right, so we compile it. Page reloads. Says hello world. Excellent. Not all that interesting. So what we want to do is to, like I said, make a counter. So let's add a body. And let's instantiate a counter. And we're going to define this function in just a second. And then let's display that counter. All right. So this won't compile yet because obviously the counter is not defined right here. So let's define that. And so new counter, because it returns a stateful widget essentially, requires a transaction. And if you're coming from Haskell, this is essentially equivalent to the IO monad. But if you're not coming from Haskell, just ignore that. Basically, it's just saying that it's an XML body that has some state, and that state operates inside of a transaction. And so let's give it a source. So this source is showing Airweb's functional reactive character, where there's sources and signals. And it's if you know a little bit about functional programming, basically what happens is that you change the source and then the signal is updated automatically. And signals are viewed, at least in Airweb, with a dyn tag. So here's a dyn tag, and it takes a signal, and so we grab the value of the signal of x right here. we grab that value of the signal and we bind it to n because it's a number. And then we're going to return some XML. And that XML is going to contain the value of that signal. And I forgot a slash. There you go, that compiles. And so as you expect, it shows the value of the signal, which is 0. I mean, the value of the source, which is 0. So that's not all that interesting. It's not quite a counter yet. So let's add a button, because obviously you need to be able to change the signal. And let's call it increment. And then when you click it, so you have the on-click handler. That an on-click handler takes it's a function from the web page context to a transaction of unit. And what that means is that this function gets a value passed in, which is the current state of the browser or of the inputs to the browser at the time that button was clicked. So things like shift keys, control keys, alt keys, a whole bunch of things like the mouse, X, Y, and that kind of stuff are all passed into this function when it's clicked. But I'm not using any of them right now, so I'm just going to ignore that binding. And then we're going to get the value n, and we're going to get it this time. We're not interested in the varying signal. We want to get the value at that point in time. And then we're just going to set x to be the value of it plus 1. And don't forget the slash. Let's compile that. And as expected, it works. So we can increment the signal. And so if you don't know what functional reactive programming is, basically the whole idea is that it's very similar to what's known as the MVVM model, the model view model. And basically the whole idea is that you have state changes that are propagated automatically to the view, and that the view updates itself whenever there's a change in the state. So now this example can't be all that interesting without a decrement button. So let's implement that, and it's actually going to be pretty much exactly identical to the increment, where you're just getting the value of the source and then setting the value of the source minus 1. Compile that, compiles properly, and here we go. We can increment, decrement, and it seems to work just fine. So that is the simplest possible application you could build in Urweb. Next will be abstracting this and making it possible so that you can add more counters to the page, not just having this single counter. So I'll see you then.